Have you ever found yourself drawn to someone who feels like a storm? The connection is so intense, the passion so electric, that the chaos feels less like a warning and more like a sign of your deep, undeniable bond. The highs are exhilarating, but the lows are devastatingly painful, leaving you feeling desperate, drained, and perpetually on edge. You feel addicted to the cycle of fighting and making up, believing that the dramatic intensity is proof of a love so powerful it's worth any amount of pain. But what if this isn't love? What if the chemistry you're feeling is actually a trauma bond, a powerful, addictive attachment to a person who is the source of both your comfort and your pain? At Love Threads, we don't just talk about relationships. We deconstruct them. We blend authentic, grounded insights with robust, evidence-based psychology, giving you the real intelligence on why we connect, why we sometimes misstep, and how to truly thrive when love feels like a constantly shifting landscape. Tonight, we're unraveling the intoxicating, yet destructive cycle of the trauma bond and exploring how to break free. We're taught that the most profound connections are the ones that shake you to your core, the ones that challenge you and make you fight for love. But what happens when that fight is actually a survival mechanism, a familiar echo of a dynamic you learned long ago? You're not too sensitive or too much. Maybe you learned that love was conditional and that emotional intensity was a sign of passion, not dysfunction. This is the central paradox of the trauma bond. It's a powerful, almost magnetic attachment to a person who is the source of both comfort and pain. It's the cycle of devaluation and idealization, a dance where one partner systematically erodes the other's self-worth, only to pull them back with a fleeting moment of affection or remorse. And each time, a chemical cocktail of stress hormones and pleasure chemicals, cortisol, adrenaline, and dopamine, floods the brain, cementing the bond.
Imagine one individual in a relationship with a partner they describe as their soulmate. One day, their partner is showering them with gifts and affection, talking about their future and making them feel like the center of their world. The next day, this same partner is cold, distant, and dismissive. They'll disappear for hours, ignoring calls and texts, only to reappear with a flimsy excuse and a vague apology. This individual finds themselves waiting by the phone, their heart a drum solo of anxiety. They feel a desperate need to win back approval, to return to the intoxicating high of affection. They believe this intensity is proof of their deep connection, but in reality, they're tethered to the other person by a deeply ingrained pattern of trauma. Then consider another person who spent their childhood navigating the unpredictable moods of a parent. They learn to become hypervigilant, constantly on alert for shifts in their emotional state. As an adult, this person finds themselves drawn to emotionally unavailable partners. The push and pull dynamic feels familiar, even comforting, because it mirrors the chaotic love they learned in childhood. They interpret their partner's inconsistency as a challenge to win their love, a puzzle they believe they can solve, rather than a sign of a fundamental lack of respect. For this person, a calm, stable relationship feels boring and even dangerous because their nervous system has been wired to equate intensity with intimacy.
A trauma bond isn't just about a bad relationship. It's a profound psychological and biological phenomenon. It's an attachment born from a cycle of abuse, where intermittent reinforcement creates a powerful, addictive loyalty that is difficult to break. This bond often forms in relationships with partners who are emotionally unstable, where there's a repeated pattern of harm followed by a gesture of affection. The brain, particularly the limbic system, doesn't distinguish between a healthy relationship and a traumatic one. It registers emotional intensity and threat. When the cycle of abuse and affection is repeated, the brain gets hooked on the dopamine hit that comes with the making up phase. even as the body is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline during the conflict. This is what psychological approaches integrating neuroscience would describe as a dysregulated nervous system, a brain wired for survival, not for secure connection. We can trace this back to adult attachment theory. Those with an anxious attachment style, often rooted in inconsistent childhood care, are particularly susceptible to trauma bonds. They unconsciously seek out the familiar push and pull dynamic, driven by a deep-seated fear of abandonment. The anxious partner pursues, while the avoidant partner pulls away, creating an endless feedback loop that confirms both partners' core wounds. Depth psychology helps us understand the archetypal drives at play. The anima-animus archetype and the shadow come into focus as we may be projecting our profound need for wholeness or our unhealed wounds onto a partner who embodies just enough of that ideal to keep us hooked. Family systems work suggests that these patterns are not new. They are often unconscious loyalties to our family systems. If a parent or an ancestor experienced a traumatic or chaotic relationship, we can unconsciously carry that burden or finish that story believing we are healing it by reenacting it. For the first individual, this loyalty might be to a grandmother who silently endured a tumultuous marriage, a pattern she unconsciously believes is what love looks like. For the second individual, their loyalty is to a child self who never felt safe, and they keep trying to earn love in relationships that are fundamentally unsafe. Psychological writings on love distinguish between immature love, which says, "I love you because I need you," and mature love, which says, "I need you because I love you." Trauma bonds are the epitome of immature love, where the need is a desperate craving for validation and stability that the other person can never truly provide. Rewriting the narrative, reclaiming your story. Breaking free from the magnetic pull of the trauma bond is a courageous act of redirecting your energy from the external chase to the profound reclamation of your inner world. This is where you stop trying to finish their story and start writing your own. It involves dismantling the unconscious blueprint that made you believe love had to be earned and replacing it with a new, authentic narrative that honors your inherent worth. This is a dedicated, often challenging process of intentional action. It's about moving from a state of perpetual longing to one of profound self-possession. Phase 1. The internal audit. Pausing the chase. Before you can build a new way of relating, you must first understand the old one. The first act of rebellion is to stop the chase and turn inward. This is a profound act of self-differentiation, a concept often explored in family systems work. You are separating your identity from the frantic dance of the trauma bond. Mindful pause and observation. The next time you feel the familiar impulse to chase, to send that text, to overgive, or to anxiously wait, just pause. Don't act on it. Instead, become a silent observer of your own internal landscape. Ask yourself, what is my body feeling right now? What emotion is driving this impulse? Is it fear of abandonment, a need for validation, or the ghost of a past longing? This simple, conscious act of separation between feeling and action starts to break the deeply ingrained neural pathways of the chase, as described by attachment theory. You're teaching your nervous system that it is safe to not pursue, that the world won't end just because the almost remains elusive. Trace the echoes of your past. The trauma bond is often a familiar echo. Use journaling as a tool to explore this. Write about your earliest memories of love and connection. Was love a consistent, reliable presence? Or was it a flickering flame that you had to work tirelessly to keep lit? Did you feel you had to prove your worthiness to a parent or caregiver? What was the unspoken contract you inherited? By bringing these echoes into conscious awareness, you can begin to see that the pattern isn't a flaw in your present self, but a survival strategy from your past. You can look at that inner child who learned to shrink or chase and offer them the unconditional love they were denied, as recommended by therapeutic approaches focused on emotion and early life experiences. Phase 2. The rebuilding, nurturing the whole self. The trauma bond thrives on you diminishing yourself. To break free, you must actively and intentionally rebuild the parts of yourself that you sacrificed. This is the act of integrating your own voice and desires, a crucial step in the process of individuation from depth psychology. Reclaim your voice and your needs. You have a right to your needs, and they are not too much. The core of the trauma bond pattern is the belief that your needs are a burden. Start small. Practice asking for what you want in low-stakes situations. Practice saying no to things that drain you and yes to things that fill you. Your voice has been quieted by the trauma bond, so it must be strengthened. This is the foundation of building healthy boundaries, the honest expression of what you need to feel safe and respected. This is a practical application of principles from nonviolent communication, which teaches us to express our needs clearly without blame. Cultivate your own symphony. The unfinished symphony of the trauma bond can consume your life. To break its spell, you must consciously begin writing and playing your own symphony. What are your passions, your hobbies, your interests outside of a relationship? What brings you joy, a sense of purpose, and a feeling of being wholly and completely you? Actively invest your time and energy in these pursuits. This builds a robust sense of self-worth that is not dependent on external validation, and it is a powerful antidote to the shame that researchers on vulnerability and courage have identified as a primary barrier to connection. You become a complete composition, not a half-finished note waiting for someone else to play the rest. Phase 3. The new relationship blueprint. From chasing to choosing. Once you have done the internal work, you are ready to approach relationships from a new place of wholeness, not a void. This is where you consciously choose a new narrative for your love life. Define your non-negotiables. You can no longer afford to tolerate the trauma bond. Based on your new self-awareness, define your non-negotiables for a healthy relationship. What does consistent, reciprocal connection actually look like to you? What does commitment sound like? What does respect feel like? This isn't a rigid list of demands, but a new empowered standard for the kind of connection you deserve. When a new person or an old pattern presents itself, you no longer chase its potential. You measure it against your non-negotiables. If it falls short, you have the courage to walk away, a process of discerning what is healthy and what is not, in a way that modern love experts have highlighted is crucial. Embrace the courage of secure love. True security can feel foreign and even boring to a system wired for the drama of the trauma bond. It can feel like a lack of passion when it's actually a profound, quiet peace. Be prepared for this discomfort. This is where you practice staying with a partner when you have an urge to create drama. And this is where you practice allowing your new partner to be there for you without the need to prove you are worthy of their presence. Trust that a love that doesn't need to be earned is the most real and sustaining love of all. It is a relationship built on the principles of a sound relationship house, where you actively build trust, admiration, and a foundation of mutual respect, rather than a house built on sand. The turning point in this journey isn't found in a dramatic confrontation or a sudden moment of clarity that magically fixes everything. It's quieter than that. It's a seismic shift that occurs not in the external landscape of your relationship, but in the most intimate corners of your inner world. But what if, beneath the relentless overgiving, the patient waiting, and the tireless effort to make a trauma bond work, there wasn't a flaw in your design, but rather your soul's most profound, often unheard cry to finally be seen? Not just for what you do, the efforts you make, the love you pour out, but for who you are, in your unadorned authenticity, with all your needs, vulnerabilities, and unique brilliance. What if the relentless pursuit of this bond was actually a profound, if misguided, attempt to heal an old wound by trying to change the past in the present, to turn an unrequited childhood longing into a reciprocated adult love, to finally prove your worth to someone who never fully recognized it? This is the turning point. Healing begins not when you find the right person to finally complete you, but when you consciously choose to stop outsourcing your inherent worth to the elusive echoes of your childhood, to the unfulfilled promises of past relationships, or to the tantalizing yet ultimately empty potential of someone who cannot or will not meet you fully. This moment is a courageous act of self-love. Researchers on vulnerability and shame have shown us that the deepest barrier to authentic connection is often the shame that tells us we are fundamentally flawed, that we deserve the chaos, that if we were just better, the relationship would work. The turning point is the moment you choose courage over that shame. It's the quiet rebellion of saying, the trauma bond is not a reflection of my worth, but a manifestation of my deepest, unhealed wounds. I choose to face my pain rather than continue to repeat it. This is an act of profound self-compassion. The moment you begin to see that your desire for love isn't a weakness, but a vital part of your humanity. Depth psychology teaches us that a trauma bond can be a painful, unconscious attempt to integrate aspects of our shadow, the denied or unaccepted parts of ourselves. For instance, you might have suppressed your need for healthy conflict or your desire for independence to maintain peace. The trauma bond, in its chaotic intensity, forces these denied parts to the surface. The turning point is the moment you stop projecting your unhealed pieces onto your partner and instead turn inward to confront them. This is the beginning of individuation, the lifelong journey to become a whole, integrated self, independent of external validation. It's the moment you stop seeking love as a passive feeling and begin to practice it as an active choice. As philosophical thought on love has described it, it's a shift from being a passive recipient of intermittent affection to an active participant in your own self-worth. It begins when we recognize that the profound, encompassing love we've been trying so desperately to pull from the trauma bond is, in its purest form, the very love we are capable of cultivating within ourselves, a boundless, unconditional wellspring. This emotional shift is also a conscious rebellion against the unconscious loyalties of your family system. You are making the choice to break the generational pattern of pain and unfulfilled love. It is a moment where you honor your past not by repeating it, but by choosing a different, healthier path for your future. The trauma bond then transforms from a painful trap into a profound teacher, preparing you for the real thing. It's a quiet, sacred truth, a knowing that settles deep in your bones. The trauma bond served its purpose. It was simply preparing you for the true connection once you are ready to receive it, not from a place of deficit, but from an abundant self-worth.
The journey out of the trauma bond trap is a courageous path towards self-reclamation. It's about dismantling the belief that your worth is measured by how much you give or sacrifice, and replacing it with the profound truth that your worth is inherent simply because you exist. By understanding your unmet emotional needs, cultivating a strong sense of self-differentiation, and establishing healthy boundaries, you can transform relationships from draining entanglements into spaces of mutual growth and authentic connection. This path demands patience, compassion for yourself, and the willingness to navigate discomfort. But the reward is immense, a life where you are fully present, authentically expressed, and capable of fostering relationships that truly nourish and uplift you. It's about creating love threads that are strong, flexible, and beautifully intertwined without ever losing their individual integrity. So ask yourself, when did you first learn that love meant disappearing?
What would it feel like to love without losing yourself? Maybe the most radical thing you can do is to leave when a part of you wants to stay, because the part of you that wants to leave is the part that is finally ready to love you. If this stirred something in you, subscribe to Love Threads. We're not here to fix you, we're here to help you remember who you are.